Greetings, humans! I'm in my garage again, so as usual, pardon the ugly backdrop. So today I am working on what I would consider more of an upcycling project than an actual creation. We've been in need of an end table in our living room for some time, and I found one at a thrift store for $5, which is in pretty good condition, but it's boring. So here is the article of furniture. It's the correct shape and size. It's just plain, boring, dark veneer. It's got a few scratches on it, but nothing terrible. It's nice and sturdy, but it needs adjustment. First off, this thing needs a door. I'm going to use the scrap old particle board, which should be just about the right size, and I'll go ahead and make it a swinging cabinet door. The edge of this board is a little bit rough, so I'm going to go ahead and just give it a quick sand down. At the same time, I'm also going to sand the smooth surface here because I'm eventually going to paint this and I want it to take the paint well. Now I flipped this over and I'm going to stain it. Now, the stain that I have is not a perfect match to the color of the furniture, but it's close enough that it's going to make the inside of this door look a little nicer. Well, the textured surface did not take the stain very well, which I probably should have anticipated. And I'm sure anybody watching this who actually knows how to use stain is cringing at my ineptitude. But hey, live and learn, right? My next task is to sand the outside of this. I don't want all of this super smooth veneered surface because I'm going to be, like I mentioned before, painting the entire outside of this. Like this is fine. I'm not trying to remove the veneer entirely, just create a rough surface for the paint to bond to. So I'm just, as soon as I can feel the texture of it, it's good to go. These little screw covers do not want to come off. So I'm just going to hand sand around these to make sure that they're scuffed up enough that the paint will hold. Also, corners are a little dinged up. Instead of trying to repair those, I'm actually going to try to round them off. I've already done the one over here. You can see I've just rounded off that corner just a little bit to prevent anybody from hurting themselves running into the edges of this. Here it is, all scraped up and ready to paint. I'm starting off with acrylic paint. That actually looks really awful on screen. Now you can see that this coating isn't perfect. There are hints of the darker veneer showing through in places, and I'm actually completely okay with that because I'm going a little bit steampunk with this design, and I want it to look a little bit beat up and aged. Not ugly, but not perfectly pristine either. Now that the rest of the table is painted, I'm going to go ahead and paint the outer side of the cabinet door as well. The paint is looking very good, pretty much exactly how I imagined it. There was nothing wrong with the darker brown-black finish that was on it before, but this redder color is going to match a lot better with the other furniture that I have in the living room. Also, for the record, wearing white pants while sanding, staining, and painting is not one of the most intelligent choices I've made in my life. The next step in this process is to take a little bit of this darker red brown and start doing a little bit of dry brushing around the edges and the corners. This red is nice, but I think it's a little bit redder than I want. So I'm actually going to go ahead and grab a little bit of black paint so that I can add a little more darkness to these weathered edges instead of them just looking a bit bloodstained. Next, I'm going to start working on the latch for the cabinet. This is going to be a simple hook latch that just turns and drops down onto a little bar to hold it in place. And I'm going to be using this little bit of wood, which, if I recall correctly, is a piece of an old easel that broke. So I just disassembled it and kept all the pieces. So I've got one hole here already, which is going to be my pivot point for the latch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to carve a little indent into here. Actually, I've marked it already on this side. So I'm going to start by drilling a hole right there and then carve out into it. It was a bit difficult to film while drilling, but I've gone ahead and roughly drilled out the shape of that, and now I'm just going to carve and sand out the rest of it. The old easel that I pulled apart already included some very nice brass fittings, so I'm going to use these to attach the latch and just keep these as the color they are, since the brass works really well with the sort of steampunky feel I'm going for. So this shorter bolt is going to go through the pivot hole to hold the latch to the door. The longer one is going to be the hook bolt. I want the brass fittings to stand out nice and bright against this little latch, so I'm going to go ahead and stain it a darker color. I don't know if I'll be able to get it to match the that brown black kind of color on the interior, but it doesn't need to. I just want it to be dark enough for the gold to stand out nicely. Now that I have my base coat done, the next thing I'm going to be doing is adding a narrow gold strip all the way around the edges here. I'm marking it a ruler width away from the edge because that's nice and convenient. I don't know if you can see the pencil lines on the video, but I'm going ahead and making a rectangle all the way around, and then my actual gold strip will be 1/2 inch wide. Now that I have these marked, I'm going to go ahead and fill it in on the corners so that the lines overlap and go back the other direction. And here is the design all taped off and ready for painting. All the pieces are masked off, Not the tidiest masking job ever, but it should get the job done. I wouldn't have bothered with this if I was going to hand paint, but I'm going to be doing some spray painting, so having those nice crisp edges is going to be awesome. Now I'm going to make sure I strip off all of this masking before the paint dries too much and sticks the tape to the boards. I really want these gold lines to stand out brightly, so I'm going to go ahead and take some metallic black paint and put some lines around the edges of the gold to really make it pop out. Black and gold trim is all done and looking rather sharp, if I do say so myself. That done, it means it's time to move on to the part of this project that I've been waiting for. It's dragon time. But that will have to wait for next week. For now, I hope you enjoyed this first half of the video. Stick around, subscribe if you want to see me painting the dragons next week. Until next time, fare thee well.